Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to Testa and Neal Keep It Real right here on WWSU 106.9 FM and our WWSU 106.9 YouTube channel. I'm back to normal volume because I'm out of Florida. I'm away from all the old people that complained about how loud I was, and now I'm back to all the young people that know how loud I am. So good to be back. Parker, how are you? Hope everyone had a great 4th of July weekend. Good to be back, though.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, we hope everybody had a great fourth. I was out working all day, but we hope you got a chance to get outside and enjoy the hot weather we had, and got to spend some time with your families.
Absolutely. And I mentioned right before we started recording, for those of you that live in the the Dayton, Ohio area, I'm sure you've heard of Young's Dairy. Um, Very nice little place to take the kids, hang out, get some ice cream, putt golf out there, batting cages, a petting zoo, all that kind of stuff. It's a cool little vibe. Well, I went to go visit some family, and they had a tub of Young's Dairy vanilla ice cream for dessert, and I forgot how good that stuff was. It's extremely creamy, and it's sweet enough to satisfy your dessert mouth, your dessert tooth, whatever you want to call it, but it's not overly sweet where it feels like you're eating frozen sugar. So it's like the perfect ice cream. So today, what did I do? I went back up to Young's Dairy, like any sane human would, and I bought $40 worth of ice cream. 5 half gallons. They're chilling in a freezer in my apartment, and those will, casually be eaten throughout the course of the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit. We're both big ice cream fans, and
Uh
I
huh.
just went out and bought some, here a couple hours ago. But yeah, big ice cream guy.
Yeah, that might be our next tier list, man. I mean, ice cream flavors.
Right. Yeah, I'm down. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had probably 50 different ice cream flavors, so I feel like I'm, a reasonable analyst of ice cream flavor combinations. I'm like the Adrian Wojnarowski of ice cream flavors. Like, sources tell me that Rocky Road is the new big thing.
Yeah, I'm not a big Rocky Road person, and unless it's like the actual dessert. But I can get chocolate, marshmallows, and peanuts and almost anything. So,
There you go.
but right, yeah. So yeah, I'm a big chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream fan, Shay.
Cookie dough. Cookie dough is good. Cookies and cream is better.
Yeah, big cookies and cream fan also.
Yeah. Okay? Okay. I was worried you were gonna say that cookie dough is I mean cookie dough is great, but I was worried you were gonna say that you only like cookie dough and that cookies and cream isn't as good. And so the fact that you appreciate both of them, I'm satisfied with that answer. So I'm kind of, I mean, we'll get into sports here in just a second, but I'm kind of more of a traditionalist in a way where like my favorite, I guess it depends on the place that I'm getting ice cream at, but overall my favorite milkshake flavor and my favorite ice cream flavor is just plain old strawberry.
Yeah, as I put my glasses on here so I can read what I have. Yeah, I'm a big just classic vanilla. If there's no other options available, just classic vanilla. But when we went to that Reds game, we went and got strawberry milkshakes on the way home. They were
Yes, we did.
fantastic.
Yes, we did. Steak and Shake does it well. And then, I mean, I tweeted about this a couple days ago, but summertime, the limited time peach milkshake at Chick Fil A. Oh boy, that hits different. So now, congratulations, because everyone who's listening to this show is now either going out to get ice cream or has a little bit more restraint but hates us for bringing ice cream up.
Yeah, we apologize for we're feeling the same way. We both want some ice cream, and if you know me, I'm gonna be getting some after we're done recording.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So we got a big show for you today. NBA Finals start tonight. Game one, Suns and Bucks. We're gonna break that down, talk about everything you need to know. How is Giannis gonna play? Also, Hawks reach an agreement with a new head coach. He just led that team to the Eastern Conference Finals. We're both big fans of him, so we'll talk about that as well. A little bit later in hour number one, a really cool article that I found that I think will be really fun to break down. One more move that every NFL team should make before the NFL season begins. It'll be interesting to see because I think a lot of teams improved, a lot of teams got worse. But if you have to narrow everything down to one move, what move is that? Hour number 2, MLB All-Star Game is less than a week away. Well, I should say it is a week away, a week from tonight. We knew the starters. We talked about it last week, but now the reserves are out, all the pitchers as well as the bench players. So we'll break it down. Who got snubbed? Some of the cool storylines with the All-Star teams. And then a little bit later in hour number 2, college football. Again, we're starting that schedule Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays of college football here on the show. Today, we're going to be talking about the best quarterback rooms in the country, the top 15 QB rooms in the country. So we're not just talking starting quarterbacks. Obviously, starting quarterbacks will carry a lot of weight, but also who has some really good backups, who has some really good 5-star freshmen, so stuff like that. So I'm excited for this show. It's good to be back. And I don't really have anything other than that. So anything you want to add on, Parker?
No, it is good to be back. Like we said earlier, hope you all had a happy 4th, and we're getting ready to get back at it.
Absolutely. Last thing I will mention before we get into the NBA is our new, like I said, our new college football segments schedule. Mondays is kind of like a free topic day. We talk about really anything, whether it's position battles, whether it's draft prospects, whether it's tough schedules, stuff like that. It's just kind of whatever whatever's in at that point. And feel free to interact with us on social media at WWSU1069. That's on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or at Parker Testa, at ESPN Shea Neal. Let us know what you want to hear, and we might bring it up on a Monday. Wednesdays is going to be our non-Power 5 conference preview day, and then Fridays is going to be our Power 5 conference preview day. So Fridays we're going to be having a lot of fun, but there's a lot of really good talent and a lot of really good teams that aren't in the Power 5 too. So make sure you tune in on Wednesdays as well. This week, Parker, we're going to do the American on Wednesday. I'm very excited for that because there's a lot. Like I said, it's not a Power 5 conference, but it's got a lot of really good football teams in it. The University of Cincinnati, UCF, Houston, Memphis, even the South Florida Bulls. There's a lot of teams competing for the American Championship this year, and it'll be fun to break that down. And then on Friday, we're going to get started with a bang. We're going out to the West Coast, and we're talking Pac-12. Is Caden Slovis good enough to win the Pac-12 title for USC? Will it be Oregon? Will it be Washington, Arizona? There's a lot of competition in the Pac-12, so I'm really excited. American on Wednesday and Pac-12 on Friday. We're starting off college football with a bang this year.
Yeah, we are. We started our going over the toughest schedules that each team has last week, and I'm excited to just get college football back. I've been waiting all summer to talk about it.
Absolutely. So let's get started. NBA Finals starts tonight, Parker. It's the Suns and the Bucks. The first trip to the finals for the Suns since 1993, I want to say. I know it was in the 90s, but I don't remember exactly what year. But it was with Barkley. They had Barkley on that team. So first finals for the Suns since Charles Barkley. And for the Bucks, it's their first finals since 1974. And if you're, if you know a little bit about the NBA, the Bucks won their only championship in 1971, and the last time they were in the finals, they had a guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on that team. So this is a finals that has been a long time coming between two teams that have had quite a long time to get back. But I've heard a lot of people say this is going to be a boring finals because it's not the Lakers, it's not the Clippers, it's not the Nets, it's not the 76ers, it's not a big market team that everyone can rally behind. But I'll tell you what, it may be Milwaukee versus Phoenix. But you look at these rosters, you look at these coaches, and you look at the way these two teams are playing, we're in for a dogfight of a series. I think this is going to be a really fun NBA Finals.
Yeah, and the two biggest storylines, Trae Young, what's his status going to be? It just came out a little bit before the show that, Giannis is doubtful for game 1. And you brought up a good point, thinking that might be what the Bucks do for game 2 as well.
Yeah. The story that came out was if Hawks-Bucks went to game 7, Giannis was going to play. And I think we knew that before that was even announced, because if it's a game 7, your season's on the line. I feel like if he could have walked, he would have played. So the story was if it went to game 7, he would have played. But now that it's a brand new series, and now that obviously every game's important, but there's not as much urgency right now. You can afford to drop a game or two. at this point in the series, especially going into game one. But especially because the first two games of the series are going to be in Phoenix. That's already a really tough place to play. It's going to be hard to win those games, even if Giannis plays. So what I'm thinking, you just have Giannis take it easy for 4 or 5 more days. Have him be ready for game 3 when the series comes back to Milwaukee.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good coaching decision by Coach Budenholzer. It really is. They didn't struggle, if you will, in those last couple games with who did they play? I'm drawing a blank.
Atlanta?
Atlanta. That's it. Wow. So yeah, Trae Young, didn't play. Um, for a couple games in that series, but the Bucks bench was just too much to overcome for Atlanta. But obviously, the big storyline of the finals is what's Giannis's status, and we're talking about that now, and I think that's a good idea to kind of keep him well rested, especially like you said with 2 games in Phoenix that are going to be tough to win.
Right. And I think that I'm curious what your thoughts are, but I think that when Giannis is 100% healthy, which he probably won't be this entire series, but when Giannis is 100% healthy, I think the Bucks are a more talented basketball team than the Phoenix Suns are. But with Giannis dealing with that injury, even if he does play, he will not be at 100%. So as we sit right now, I think the Suns got to be the favorites.
Right, they do, and like you said, with especially how well Chris Paul's playing, and he almost single-handedly carried the Suns through those last couple games of that series, and he's played spectacular all for the entirety of these playoffs. But the like you said, the early favorites have to be the Suns with Giannis being absent.
Yeah, and I think that's the big difference for me between these two teams that makes me lean towards Phoenix for winning this series. When you talk about the Bucks, it's a very good basketball team, but more times than not, they play through their big four: Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday, and Brook Lopez. One of those four is usually, or those four are usually 90% of that team's production. You don't see a lot from guys like Bryn Forbes or PJ Tucker, at least offensively. Bobby Portis had a couple nice games, but it's usually that big four: Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, and Lopez. The Suns, a different guy can beat you any given night, and that's what makes them dangerous. Some nights it's Chris Paul. Some nights it's Devin Booker. Some nights it's DeAndre Ayton. Some nights it's Mikal Bridges. Some nights it's Cameron Payne. Some nights it's, off the bench, Dario Saric. So this Suns team has 6 or 7 guys that are cold-blooded assassins that can beat you any given night. And I think that's what inevitably makes the difference. I think the Bucks, as good as they are, they're sometimes too reliant on their stars. I think the Phoenix Suns are more adaptable, and I think that's what's going to win them this championship.
Yeah, they are, and like you said, they use more of their bench. And what we've noticed is deeper teams are more prepared for big games. They can go deeper into that bench. They can play guys that they don't normally play to kind of mix it up, make their defense tough on them. So yeah, right now the Suns are the deeper team. Especially with Giannis being absent. And like you said, I have to give them a slight edge here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, this series obviously has the star power: Devin Booker, Chris Paul, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton. But Giannis, we don't know when Giannis will be back in this series. Obviously, Dante DiVincenzo is also hurt for the Bucks, so they have a couple injuries. I think the two big matchups to keep your eye on in this series is, can Brook Lopez slow down DeAndre Ayton? Brook Lopez has had a really good postseason, but Brook Lopez is also in his mid-30s. DeAndre Ayton is 22 and is having the best stretch of his professional basketball career. DeAndre Ayton looks like one of the best big men in the league right now. He's way more athletic. He's more agile than Brook Lopez at this point. So as good as Brook Lopez has been, I'm concerned that he's not going to be able to slow down DeAndre Ayton. And the other thing that I want to keep an eye on is Drew Holiday versus Devin Booker. Devin Booker is one of the best scorers in the NBA, and he's still only 24 years old. Drew Holiday is an all-NBA defender. We've heard it all year. He slowed down Harden. He's slowed down Kyrie Irving. He's slowed down Trae Young. can he do it one more time and slow down Devin Booker?
Yeah, that's the key question. And like you said, I think the Bucks have the bigger name, the bigger star on their team, and that's Giannis. But as far as matchup play goes, the Suns are coming at you with more than I think Milwaukee can handle. Like you said, they have Payne, who's a really good shooter from the perimeter. And then with Chris Paul running the point, he's always a threat. And then down low, you have Ayton. So the Suns are going to come at you with everything they got.
They sure are. So really quick, we're gonna talk more NBA Finals throughout the course of the week. We just kind of wanted to introduce the show with it today, but we want to make sure we have enough time to get to this NFL topic. So really quick before Game 1 tonight, Parker, we'll address this again in a couple days, but you have to give a series prediction. Who wins the championship and how many games? I'll go first to give you a little bit of time to think. We'll also do Finals MVP. Have a little fun with it. I'm gonna go with the Suns in 6. And I think Finals MVP, as much as I want to give it to the guy because he's going to win his first ring, I think it's Devin Booker.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Here's what I think, though. I think that the Suns are going to get up early in this series, and then Giannis will inevitably play, and they're going to come back and make a series out of it. We're going to go to a Game 7.
Okay.
Suns Bucks with, get this, Jay Crowder as the series MVP.
Wow. That'd be the I don't want to say no name, but that would be the most obsolete Finals MVP since Andre Iguodala. So
you're right.
Yeah, I mean, if this series, these two teams are really fun to watch. I enjoy watching both of these basketball teams, and really, whoever wins, I'm not going to have any problem with because either Chris Paul gets his first ring, and I'm very happy, and I like watching the Suns play, or Giannis gets a ring, and I love watching Giannis play too. So really, I can't lose here with this series. All I'm hoping for is good basketball, and if it goes to Game 7, we had one hell of a series.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, if we go to a Game 6, or maybe the minimum 4, maybe one of these teams sweep. I still think we're going to have good, close, hard-fought basketball all the way throughout this series.
I agree, and it's. I feel like it's different. Obviously, this whole postseason has been different from years past, but like I feel like in years past we've seen the Warriors, the Cavs, even teams like last year with the Lakers, teams that just know that they have the star power and know that they have the ability to just outscore anybody. And so sometimes they get a little lackadaisical, even in an environment like the NBA Finals. The Suns and the Bucks are too gritty, hard fought, had to grind their way to the finals. The Bucks had to knock out the Nets, had to knock out the Hawks, had to knock out the Heat. The Suns had to knock out LeBron, had to knock out Jokic, the reigning league MVP, had to knock out the Clippers. So both of these teams have had to, claw and fight their way to the finals. And they just play with, that kind of bulldog mentality. And I think that's why every single game in this series is going to be fun to watch because both of these teams play their hearts out and leave it all on the court. And I think this is going to be a really fun finals because both of these teams are just really, really scrappy basketball teams.
Yeah, they are, and they're led by two coaches that are both like that, have that mentality. Coach Budenholzer is a grinder, and Monty Williams has come in and he'll throw a few different things at you, make you kind of expect the unexpected, so I'm excited to see how this plays out.
There you go. The finals Game 1 tonight. We'll address, obviously we'll talk Game 1 tomorrow on the show, but our pre-series picks, so we can't cheat. I'm going with the Suns in 6 with Devin Booker as the finals MVP. Parker went with the Suns in 7 with Jay Crowder as the finals MVP. So let us know your thoughts on social media. Who wins the series and who's the finals MVP? Do you think Giannis comes back and saves the day and wins the Bucks a ring? Or does Chris Paul get finals MVP and win his first ring? So I'm curious to say. And honestly, the way he's been playing in this playoffs, I expect to see a lot of people say that Ayton's going to win finals MVP because Ayton's been balling out.
He has, and he's been a big help. Not that Booker hasn't, but he's been a big help to Chris Paul. Especially where they play, inside within that 15-foot range. He boxes out, he fights hard, and he's a a bit of a scoring center,
Yeah.
which is surprising because you don't see a lot of those anymore. You see more of the rim protector. So
Right.
it's good to see a bit of a change of pace, if you will, for not only these teams in the finals, but a bit of a shakeup in the star power.
Right. And I think Aiton fits the Suns so perfectly because he's still only 22 years old. He just plays with such a high motor. Like, there's not many 7'2" NBA centers that can not only protect the rim on defense, but throw down alley oops on offense and spread the floor and shoot threes and mid range jumpers and still have the energy to be sprinting up and down the floor and having chase down blocks and getting offensive rebounds. DeAndre Ayton has such an unbelievably high motor, and he's still a really young kid. The sky's the limit for this dude. I don't want to say he was by no means a bust at all his first couple of years in the NBA. He was still very solid, but a lot of people were saying, was this really worthy of the number one overall pick? Well, what we've seen in this playoffs, he looks like a number one overall pick.
He does. He's been a tremendous asset to Monty Williams and his team. So if the Suns continue to, if they come into this series with the momentum that they have, and it's a lot, I think they're going to be, really confident in what they're doing. And I think Monty Williams will kind of preach confidence here, but a confident team this late in the season who's coming off a really good series, they have all the momentum and all the confidence in the world, and a confident team in the NBA playoffs scares me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I completely agree. So again, leave us your thoughts on who wins the finals and how many games and who's the finals MVP. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Does Monty Williams win finals? And I'm just kidding. But let's get into this NFL topic so we have enough time to hit through every team here in hour number one, Parker. One move every NFL team should make before the 2021 season begins. We have about 35 minutes or so here to hit on 32 NFL teams. So this is going to be kind of rapid fire analysis. We're going to read off what they think each team should do. We're going to kind of, have the floor for about 60 seconds and basically say if we agree or disagree, and just kind of rapid fire discussion today so we get through all this because we have a jam-packed show. So let's get started. First move is the Arizona Cardinals. Trade linebacker Jordan Hicks. The Arizona Cardinals drafted Zaven Collins 16th overall. They have Isaiah Simmons as well, who's the 8th overall pick last year. Hicks will be squeezed out of the rotation, and the Cardinals let it be known that the veteran is no longer a big part of the team's long-term plans. He accepted a pay cut, but 2 months later, they gave him permission to seek a trade. A new team should take on his salary. What are your thoughts on Jordan Hicks?
He's been a solid linebacker, everywhere he's been. But in Atlanta, like this says, he took a pay cut, and then he's looking for a trade. But if they want to kind of get something out of him, because he's going to be a free agent after this year, and if they want to get something out of him, you trade him for maybe a third or a fifth round pick.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, like this says, I mean, he's still talented. When you're 27, 28 years old, it's going to be nearly impossible for him to carve out playing time when he's, competing with guys like Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins, 2 first-round linebackers. So I think this makes a lot of sense for both parties. The Atlanta Falcons sign running back Adrian Peterson. Don't expect the Falcons to build Arthur Smith's offense around the running game since Derrick Henry didn't follow the head coach to Atlanta. Smith said during an interview that Derrick is the outlier. The number of carries he had, it's impressive to watch. At one point in time, Adrian Peterson was the same way. He was the workhorse back capable of carrying an offense. He's not the same anymore, but he can still provide valuable experience and quality reps in a backfield that is struggling for consistent talent. Currently, Mike Davis projects as the Falcons' starting running back. He's a solid back who's coming off his best season after Christian McCaffrey got hurt, but he's never been a featured back. What are your thoughts on potentially Adrian Peterson heading to Atlanta?
I don't hate this. I know I don't. I'm a firm believer in what the Falcons are doing. I still think that even though they lost Julio, they still got the pieces in place there to be really good. They just drafted Kyle Pitts. They still have Calvin Ridley out wide, and I think Matt Ryan's not even close to being done. So I'm a big fan of I would get behind AP 28 to go to the Falcons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea too. Mike Davis was really strong last year in Carolina, but like this says, he's never been a starting running back over the course of a full season. Adrian Peterson's not the same dude he was 8 years ago, but you split. You don't even need to split carries with him and Mike Davis. You make Adrian Peterson a third down running back or a red zone running back. Just what he's able to offer to a locker room, and just the fact that even if he only gets the ball 2 or 3 times on a drive, he's still gonna fight for every yard. That's the kind of guy you want in your locker room, especially when it's a new coaching staff that's trying to win over the roster.
Right, right. And so I'm really curious to see what Arthur Smith does here. So if they use Mike Davis, and if this is just speculation, but if Adrian Peterson was there, it would be interesting to see how those two backs get split time. Is Mike Davis the starter, and Adrian Peterson comes in on maybe like a every 2 or 3 down roll? That would be something that they would have to figure out. So I don't hate this move. I don't.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I really like this one, Parker. The Baltimore Ravens sign edge rusher Justin Houston. The Baltimore Ravens' top two edge rushers, Matt Judon and Yannick Ngakwe, both left to go elsewhere in free agency. Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta responded by giving Tyus Bowser a 4-year extension and drafting Odafe Owa with this year's 31st overall pick. The pass rush is packed with potential, but the question is, will the production be there? Bowser and Owa are talented, but they're not guaranteed to provide the level of edge rusher that is needed. Their development may not come as quickly as the Ravens hope. The Ravens should hedge their bets by investing in a proven veteran like Justin Houston. He may be 32 years old, but he still had 8 sacks last season, and his presence in that rotation would lessen concerns at a premium position. I love that idea. I hate the Ravens because they're in the Bengals division. I'm a Bengals fan. But Justin Houston in Baltimore makes a lot of sense, and I think that'd be a really good move if the Ravens went that route.
It does, and and Justin Houston, I was kind of frowning upon when Chris Ballard signed him, but he turned out to prove me wrong, and, in big numbers at that. I think he had like 8 or 9 sacks his first year, not as many last year, but he still was really good, and he surprised me. He did. So for Baltimore, I think he'd be a great piece to for their defense.
I totally agree. So let's move on to the Buffalo Bills. Trade for tight end Zach Ertz. The Philadelphia Eagles have obviously been looking to trade tight end Zach Ertz for a while. The Bills have been the most logical destination. It's time for both parties to pull the trigger on a deal. The Eagles are clearly restarting with a whole new coaching staff, quarterback, and revamped receiving core. Philadelphia already has Dallas Goedert in place at tight end. A trade now will save the team $8.5 million. On the flip side, the Bills have the salary cap space to take on Ertz's contract. The Bills feature one of the league's most talented roster, yet tight end isn't quite there. Dawson Knox hasn't developed quite as expected, and Ertz can provide a security blanket for quarterback Josh Allen and improve an already great passing attack. I mean, normally I'm pretty critical of some of these articles that we go over because I think they have a couple, there's some bad takes sprinkled in there, and I know it's early, but so far I like what they're talking about here. I think this makes a lot of sense as well, and I think Ertz would be a huge weapon alongside Diggs, Beasley, and John Brown in Buffalo.
Right, and so I don't hate this one. There were lots of speculations that the Colts were going to trade for Ertz for a while, but I didn't believe those at all. But like you said, Dawson Knox, hasn't expected or hasn't developed the way they wanted them to. So this would be a really good move for the Bills. They can say, or Philadelphia can save money, and Buffalo has room to absorb his contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. And it's interesting because I know that that's been something that they've talked about for a while. We'll see if it actually comes together. The Carolina Panthers. This is the first one that I guess I'm kind of meh on, just because I don't know enough about it. Trade for left tackle Nate Solder. If the season started today, Cam Irving would be the Panthers' starting left tackle. Irving became a first-round bust for the Browns, bounced between the Chiefs and Cowboys the last few seasons, and primarily played the role of utility lineman. At best, he's a replacement-level performer. Quality left tackles aren't easy to find, especially this time of year. Maybe the Panthers will go a different route to the trade market. Veteran Nate Solder returns to the field. The Giants already have Andrew Thomas and Matt Pert. Solder may not have lived up to his 4-year, $62 million contract, but he's always been solid and his base salary is only $3 million. Considering the Panthers' season hinges on Sam Darnold's development, improving the odds of keeping him upright should receive top priority. Now, I thought Solder was making a lot more money than the $3 million they just said. So after reading that, I'm more okay with it. I thought they were suggesting that the Panthers traded for that, 16 million per year salary, which he's not worth. But if it's only a $3 million base salary, I mean, go for it, because Cam Irving, like this article said, Cam Irving is not a starting left tackle.
No, he's not. And they need to keep their new quarterback, healthy. That's what that's what the whole point is. So, like you said, I thought Nate Solder was making a lot more money than he is. And this would be a good deal for for both teams. The Giants can get back some draft capital, and the on the flip side, Darnold stays upright, so it's a win-win for both teams.
It absolutely is. Let's keep it moving, because we only have about 28 minutes or so left here in hour number one. The Chicago Bears sign right tackle Mitchell Schwartz. The Bears pieced together a stellar draft class this year, headlined by quarterback Justin Fields. As important as Fields' inclusion is, Tevin Jenkins is vital as well. Chicago plans to move Jenkins from left tackle to right tackle, thus making Charles Leno Jr. expendable. The blind side might be settled, but right tackle is not. Jermaine Ifedi and Elijah Wilkinson will compete for the spot unless the team adds another tackle. Mitchell Schwartz was the game's best right tackle in the league before a back injury derailed his campaign a season ago. The Bears can sign Schwartz, let him continue in his recovery, and see how the competition goes, and then have an upgrade at right tackle when he's healthy. I think this makes a lot of sense. Like this says, Mitch Schwartz, when he's healthy, is the best right tackle in the NFL. And I think that it's important for the Bears. Even if they start the year with Andy Dalton, you got to think about Justin Fields' protection long term. And if you have Tevin Jenkins at left tackle and Mitch Schwartz at right tackle, that's some pretty good tackles.
Yeah, it is. And who's it going to be in Chicago? Is it going to be Dalton? Is it going to be Justin Fields? We don't know. So this is really key to see how their offense plays out. Dalton isn't really known for being a mobile guy. So you have to kind of base your pass protections on that. But if you have Justin Fields back there, you can kind of do a few different things because he's more mobile than Andy Dalton. So this is a move that I think would really help. I know, especially in an offensive line ghost town. It seems like they're in Chicago.
Sure would. Cincinnati Bengals sign offensive guard David DeCastro. DeCastro may or may not play football this fall. He has to get ankle surgery for a third time. He's waiting to see how the surgery goes. If there's any chance DeCastro plays, the Bengals must do whatever they can to sign the 6-time Pro Bowl guard and help keep last year's number 1 overall pick Joe Burrow healthy. Sure, the Bengals' offensive line should be better this season, but it's still not good enough. A veteran of DeCastro's caliber playing alongside new right tackle Riley Reif would turn a weakness into a strength. As long as the younger options on the left side play above average, the Bengals would finally feature a solid offensive line. Nobody has to convince me that this is a good idea. I completely agree with everything that was just mentioned there. If DeCastro wants to play football this fall, the Bengals need to pay him whatever it takes to make him the new right guard of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, and when we talked about his possible landing spots either last week or the week before, Cincinnati was almost at the top of that list, if not at the top of that list. So this move makes so much sense for the Bengals. It really does. Like I've said before, I was on the Penei Sewell train for the draft. So I'm a big fan of protecting your quarterback, and it would be a heck of a move for the Bengals.
It sure would. Cleveland Browns extend quarterback Baker Mayfield. The Cleveland Browns should sign fourth-year quarterback Baker Mayfield to a contract extension sooner rather than later. The Browns and Baker Mayfield's agents have not had any substantial talks about his contract extension yet, but there's no sense of urgency on the part of either side to get it done before training camp. They both know it's going to happen. The Browns' guardrails regarding talent, they kind of have the philosophy of identify and pay early. An extension is the natural reflection of the organization's belief in a quarterback. Cleveland could save tens of millions of dollars with an early agreement instead of waiting to see how Mayfield performs this fall, or if they wait too long and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson get extensions before Mayfield.
Yeah, it would be like we see in all these position groups, every single year somebody sets a new number, for the top paid position or top paid player at that position.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just the next wave of it. Is it Allen? Is it Lamar Jackson? Is it Mayfield? Who's going to be who's going to get that first contract? And then that's the bar. And then the second guy signs a bigger deal, and then that's the bar. Then the third guy will want even more money than that guy. So it's a big pyramid, as when these position groups start to get paid.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The Dallas Cowboys signed defensive tackle K'Wan Short. The Dallas Cowboys are almost always linked to any splashy move with the potential to occur. The team isn't in the financial space to make something like that happen, though. As of now, the Cowboys only have $5.8 million available in salary cap space, so the team can only make a minor short-term move to improve the squad this year. K'Wan Short may not be the player he was in Carolina. He's only played in 5 games over the last 2 years because of shoulder injuries, but the Cowboys need help along their defensive line. They finished 31st against the run last season. Short on a 1-year prove-it deal couldn't hurt the team. He may even end up helping them. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like they said, Cowboys are kind of in cap hell. Can't really make a big-time splash move. Considering they only really have a few $1,000,000 to work with, I think K'Wan Short's a really solid add to help improve that run defense.
Yeah, it is. But and that's something they've needed for a while. Their defense has been in shambles. It seems like since at least the last 3 or 4 years. So K'Wan Short can as much as he is of a run stopper, he can also rush the quarterback. He puts up sacks every single year. It seems like he's leading the league in sacks through halfway through the year almost every year. So he'll find a way to get back to that quarterback, and that's what the Dallas Cowboys really need right now. The question is, can they afford it?
Absolutely, and it's always been about getting DeMarcus Lawrence, a partner in crime. And if they can go into the year with a guy like K'Wan Short, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons, their first-round pick, the Dallas defense, much like the Bengals' offensive line that we talked about a few minutes ago, might go from weakness to strength if they play their cards right. So the Denver Broncos, here's a fun one. Trade for quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The entire NFL would turn upside down if the Packers actually traded Aaron Rodgers. If it does occur, the Broncos are the logical landing spot. According to KOA Colorado's Benjamin Albright, Denver is where Rodgers wants to be. Obviously, Rodgers didn't attend mandatory minicamp, and he's officially a holdout. The situation runs far deeper than a player in a contract dispute. Seeds of distrust grew between the quarterback and the front office. The issue is a matter of principle. Will the Packers wait out the situation or fully capitalize on Rodgers' value? It's abundantly clear Rodgers won't be with the team for long, with his heir apparent Jordan Love waiting in the wings. The Broncos know what it's like to court a high-profile quarterback. They did it with Peyton Manning. In this case, Denver will have to give up multiple high-round draft picks to acquire Aaron Rodgers' services. He's worth it. I don't know if the Packers give him up, but if they do, yeah, I mean, I don't care if you have to give up 3 first-round picks. What are the odds that a first-round pick in the next 3 years turns into Aaron Rodgers?
It's slim to none. And this is like this says, they've been searching for that quarterback since Peyton Manning, and they thought they had it in Trevor Siemian for a while. They thought they had it with Drew Lock, and he still might, but there is that question of we need consistent quarterback play. So as it looks right now, Aaron Rodgers is number 1 on their target list for trades.
Let's move on to the Detroit Lions. Sign running back Todd Gurley. The Lions already flirted with the idea of signing Todd Gurley. Dan Campbell said we have interest in Todd. We do. We're talking with him and his agent. But I would say just because we have interest in him, that does not affect our feelings on DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. It does not. Interest in Gurley should reinforce the fact that Detroit is leaning towards a run-first offense based on the talent found in its backfield. That Detroit sports the worst wide receivers in the league isn't a secret. Instead of trying to make a marginal improvement in that area, the Lions can embrace a new identity. Gurley, who has dealt with knee issues throughout his career, can also benefit playing in rotation with Swift and Williams. I like this idea. Obviously, like it says, it's not a secret. The Lions receivers just aren't very good now that Galladay and Marvin Jones are gone. And it's not a 1-year fix. They're going to need to draft multiple wide receivers over the next couple of years. So I like the idea of having 3 starting caliber running backs and just, doing a run first committee scheme, kind of like the San Francisco 49ers do. The Niners obviously have Brandon Ayuk, have Deebo Samuel, a couple solid wide receivers, but we saw that stretch where they gave the ball to Raheem Mostert, Jerick McKinnon, and who was the other one? They had 3 guys, but they'd run the ball almost every single play. So I think it's a good idea by Dan Campbell in this front office, instead of just signing a bunch of mid-tier wide receivers and pretending that your wide receiver core isn't a problem. Let's just run the football until we get it fixed.
Right. And like you said, the receiver room is going to take a couple years to kind of put the pieces back together with, but they have some options there. Jamal Williams is he's not a bigger guy, but he can catch out of the backfield. So can Gurley. DeAndre Swift, I think, is more of a power back, third down back kind of role, but this makes sense for the Lions, because like Dan Campbell said, their options are open and they're interested.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's going to be interesting to see the next move by the Lions moving forward. So, okay, there we go. I was going to say my mouse just kind of died there. Green Bay Packers extend cornerback Jair Alexander. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers' decision regarding Aaron Rodgers will define the franchise for years to come. They could trade him, although the best option is hoping to find some common ground for the season. With the thought that Rodgers remains on the roster, Green Bay's next step is extending others. Cornerback Jair Alexander and wide receiver Devontae Adams are both due. Alexander gets the nod based on timing. The defensive back market could reset in the coming months with Denzel Ward, J.C. Jackson, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, as well as Bengals safety Jesse Bates set to receive extensions. Alexander is the best cornerback in the league with the highest overall grade last season per Pro Football Focus. He deserves to be paid as such, but a new deal before the season will mitigate the overall expense as others sign new deals. I am totally on board with this. Obviously, the Rodgers situation is tough to predict, but assuming that the Rodgers situation gets resolved one way or another, they got to extend Adams, they got to extend Alexander, and defense wins championships in the NFL. So I think they hit the nail on the head, and Alexander's got to be their top priority.
Right, and good corners are really hard to find, and they are. So, like you said, no one knows what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. No one knows what the Packers are going to do with Aaron Rodgers. So what's next on the priority list? And it's, for me, and I think, for this article as well, it's signing Jair Alexander as that number 2 on that priority list.
Mm. Houston Texans trade Deshaun Watson. The Texans can't let the situation with Deshaun Watson linger into training camp. Obviously, the Texans would prefer to trade Watson and gain assets in return if the decision is made to move on from the 25-year-old quarterback. Watson obviously dealing with some off-the-field issues that I don't want to get into on this show, but more drastic measures may be necessary, and the organization will, just maybe cut ties altogether. Either way, it seems like a fresh start appears to be the best path forward for both the Texans and Deshaun Watson as the Texans enter a rebuild.
Yeah, like he said, we're not going to get into what his off the field, issues, but he's still a fantastic player. If this all this legal talk wasn't around surrounding him, he still would be among the top quarterbacks in football, up there with Mahomes and Allen and some would say Jackson. But this makes this is what the Houston Texans have to do. And they're new GM in there in Houston, so maybe Denver's a landing spot for Deshaun Watson also. So like this says, they can't let this go on any longer.
No, they cannot. Let's get to your team, Parker. The Indianapolis Colts extend linebacker Darius Leonard. The Colts have quietly crossed off each item on their offseason to-do list after trading for Carson Wentz, drafting Kwity Paye, and signing Eric Fisher to replace Anthony Costanzo at left tackle. The Colts have one of the best, most complete rosters in the NFL with the potential to elevate their overall status. Another checkmark can be added by extending linebacker Darius Leonard. Leonard is a 2-time first-team All-Pro and the heart of the Colts defense. He has 416 total tackles in his first 3 seasons. With the most projected salary cap space for the 2022 season, the Colts can get something done with the linebacker before he enters the final year of his rookie contract.
Yeah, this is a big one. And, the two guys that the Colts have circled as their next big extensions are the two guys they drafted in 2018, with their first pick in the second round. And that's Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard are those two guys. Lots of people rank Darius Leonard as the worst pick of that draft, but he blossomed into a heck of a player. So this is, next on the list, like this says, priority one for the Colts.
Jacksonville Jaguars. This is an interesting one that I don't know how much. I don't even think I've heard of this until now. Concentrate on Laviska Shenault as H-back. The importance of understanding available talent and maximizing ability is critical for a team trying to improve. The Jaguars did the right thing by drafting Trevor Lawrence, and they paired their new quarterback with former Clemson teammate Travis Etienne. This year's 25th overall pick spent rookie minicamp as a wide receiver. Head coach Urban Meyer wanted to see what he can do as an H-back. There's nothing wrong with that approach. However, a better option might exist in Laviska Shenault. He's a guy that's right in the right position at that age gap. I love who he is. I love the way he practices. That's what Urban Meyer told reporters. Etienne can move back to running back, and the Jacksonville offense can have two explosive playmakers with Shenault as their new H-back.
Right, and this is kind of a role that we saw Ty Montgomery do with the Packers, and then with with the Bears at times. He played both positions, and we've seen Laviska Shenault. He's played well. He played well in college, so. And according to Urban Meyer, he loves the way he plays. With the early practices in Jacksonville. So this is a big decision for Urban Meyer, and yeah, I'm a fan of it. I am.
Right. And Urban Meyer loves the H-back role. I mean, two very, very high-profile Ohio State athletes have played H-back under Urban Meyer, Braxton Miller and Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel still in the NFL, obviously, and Braxton Miller, one of the greatest athletes in the history of Dayton, Ohio, five-star quarterback out of Wayne High School, and, eventually switched to wide receiver and H-back and all that stuff. But Urban loves that H-back role. So let's get to the Chiefs. Sign edge rusher Melvin Ingram III. Melvin Ingram already visited the Kansas City Chiefs this offseason and left without a deal. A visit indicates interest by both parties. A visit that doesn't end in a deal usually indicates the two sides are far apart on financials. As training camp nears and even begins, the free agent will be more motivated to sign. The Chiefs aren't up against the cap, but they don't have the room to overpay either. Ingram's potential addition could have a drastic effect with 43 sacks in the previous 5 seasons. Aside from Frank Clark, who faces a felony charge for illegal possession of a firearm, no other Chiefs edge defender managed more than 3 sacks last year. So it sounds like, the Chiefs could use some depth at edge rusher for sure.
They could, and they lost Justin Houston a few years back. They lost Tom Bahali. Both those guys were, the big names on that defense, coming at you from each side. But, like this says, Frank Clark was one of their, big guys that they had there. And, now they need another guy. So, like this says, maybe some financial issues. But if both parties can get this worked out, I think it'd be a good move.
The Las Vegas Raiders signed defensive tackle Geno Atkins. The Raiders chose to release Maurice Hurst after 3 seasons of being the team's most consistent defensive lineman. They now have Quentin Jefferson and Jonathan Hankins as solid veterans. Solomon Thomas and Darius Philon present some potential, but none of these options are better than free agent defensive tackle Geno Atkins. A shoulder injury limited Atkins to 8 games last year. The 8-time Pro Bowler still graded as the league's 3rd best interior defender. Atkins may not be an every down lineman anymore, but the Raiders don't need him to be. They simply need to be better along the defensive line while adding more ability to collapse the pocket. I think Geno Atkins would be a really good fit in Vegas.
I do too. They added to the offensive line in the draft with Leatherwood, but there are still questions on that defense. Their secondary has been better than most in the NFL, but really you need pass rush to survive as a defense, in this league, and the Raiders haven't been able to develop really any So Atkins would be a really good addition to kind of help bring that pass rush along.
The LA Chargers extend wide receiver Mike Williams. The LA Chargers offseason has been built around reigning NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year Justin Herbert. In doing so, the Chargers rebuilt their offensive line. They can also take the front office can also take a long-term approach by making sure Herbert has the talent around him to excel for the foreseeable future. Wide receiver Mike Williams will play under his fifth-year rookie option this fall. Keenan Allen is already under contract through the next 4 years, but he turns 30 next year. Mike Williams, on the other hand, is only 26, and the offense could shift towards him as Herbert's top target. As much as the offense will resemble New Orleans, offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi said that Mike Williams plays the X, and the ball has always kind of found the X receiver in this offense. I think that there will be some natural production that comes his way because of how we run our scheme. Mike Williams, I think, is underrated at times and overrated at other times, but I do think he's a very solid receiver, and I think the duo of him and Keenan Allen would be a really nice duo for Justin Herbert to have over the next few years.
Yeah, it will. And like this says, Keenan Allen's getting, older, and Mike Williams is that next guy up. And, I think this is what the Colts are going through with T.Y. Hilton right now and Michael Pittman. So this is a very similar situation for the Chargers. Herbert has, played really well, last year with, really a joke of an offensive line. So I can't wait to see what he puts up this year. They drafted Slater. And they'll have most of these targets on this offense back. They lost Hunter Henry, but I'm really excited to see what Herbert and the Chargers do.
Yeah, I am too. The LA Rams sign linebacker Quan Alexander. Quan Alexander obviously played with the Saints a season ago. Um, but the Rams are all about winning now. The organization got rid of future assets in an attempt to maximize its short-term window. They traded for quarterback Matthew Stafford and gave up 2 future first-round picks. The Rams don't have another first-round pick until 2024. So immediate help from the draft isn't necessarily coming. Instead, bargain free agent deals will help this team. The Rams built a solid roster, but linebacker remains an issue. The team lacks athleticism and speed at the linebacker position. Quan Alexander is a low-risk, high-reward signing. He dealt with injuries over the last 4 seasons, including a torn ACL and torn Achilles, but the linebacker is already showing impressive agility in his recovery, and a healthy Quan Alexander can help the Rams complete their already elite defense.
Yeah, it will. And this is one that like this says, Rams defense is fantastic, and they have all the pieces in place to win right now, and that's the goal of the Rams. So this is a move that he's still a quality linebacker in this league. Is Quan Alexander? He's played well for the Saints, and he hasn't had a whole a lot of playing time because he's been hurt. So this is one that I think the Rams should do, and it would make a lot of sense.
Yep. For the Dolphins, rework cornerback Xavier Howard's current deal. Xavier Howard wants a reworked contract reflective of his level of play. He led the league with 10 interceptions last season and became a first-team All-Pro, but he's making less than teammate Byron Jones. The latter has a $16 million salary cap hit, which ranks second behind Stephon Gilmore. In comparison, Howard's numbers are 13.5 and 12.1. As a result of his displeasure, Howard didn't go to mandatory minicamp. The Dolphins made a concerted effort to invest in the quarterback position, but Howard feels he's deserving of the best deal based on his play. A slight adjustment to his current deal shouldn't be a major issue to make him happy, even though the Dolphins only have $6 million in salary cap space. I agree with this one. Obviously, it's not going to be a huge jump to his salary to make him one of the, a top paid corner in the league. But at this point, like you said earlier, Parker, it's so hard to find number one corners in the NFL, and the last thing the Dolphins want to do is make Xavier Howard want to go somewhere else.
Right, because he's the one piece on defense that has really been like a set in stone key guy, and he's been the best corner in the NFL over the last few years. Competing there with Stephon Gilmore, but he really needs, they need to get this deal worked out because he should be making a lot more money than what he is.
Absolutely. Let's get to the Minnesota Vikings. Extend right tackle Brian O'Neill. Brian O'Neill is now the anchor of the Vikings offensive line. Um, Aside from center Garrett Bradbury, the Vikings could have three new starters this fall. Ezra Cleveland will move from right to left guard. First round pick Christian Darrisaw will take over at left tackle. And Dakota Dozier, Mason Cole, and Wyatt Davis will compete to start at right guard. Considering the right tackle's importance, the organization should lock up its top blocker now that he's on the last year of his rookie deal.
Yeah, they should. This is a really important one. So, like this says, they don't have Riley Reef anymore. So they need another guy to step up, and they need somebody that's going to be there and be kind of a veteran leader for that offensive line room. So, Brian O'Neill certainly has that potential, and they really need that right now.
Let's move on to the New England Patriots. Trade cornerback Stephon Gilmore. The New England Patriots and cornerback Stephon Gilmore are obviously headed towards a split. When that will happen is the only question. Gilmore wants a new contract as he enters the final year of his current deal. The Patriots already listened to offers for his services last year, but nothing materialized. Now Gilmore is holding out and doesn't expect to report anytime soon. By trading the four-time Pro Bowler, the Patriots can save almost $8 million. Currently, Gilmore doesn't expect to be traded. However, Bill Belichick is known for moving on from veterans a year too early instead of a year too late. Gilmore would walk next offseason. The Patriots can gain financial flexibility and coveted assets by trading him to the highest bidder.
Yeah, this one is, some people probably wouldn't agree with because he's one of the key pieces of that Patriots defense. But, like this says, what's, typical Bill Belichick? Get rid of a guy a year before he thinks he's going to, have a big regression. And a lot of times he's right about it. So this is one that if Bill Belichick is going to do the same thing he always does, which I think he will, this is one that the Patriots can really get a lot of gain back on.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so, like, what has become pretty consistent on this show is that we have overbooked our content. We kind of planned for too much for a 2 hour show. So, what we're going to do is we still have 9 teams left to do on this, but we're at the end of hour number 1. So, what we're going to do, we are going to step away, hit our legal ID. When we come back, we're going to do the last 9 teams, and we're going to just jump straight to college football because we are going to knock out college football on Monday because that's our schedule. We'll move the All-Star reserves to tomorrow because tomorrow, obviously, we only do college football 3 days a week. So what we'll do tomorrow, we'll talk NBA Finals Game 1. We'll do the MLB All-Star Game rosters, and then we'll also have a tier list. So I think this will work out, and we'll have jam-packed shows all week. But I feel like I'm too ambitious with the show, and I want to talk about everything that seems fun at the time, and then we just can't fit it all in 2 hours. But I think we'll make it work.
Yeah, I wish we could fit everything we wanted to talk about in 2 hours, but just not possible. So, kind of rework our schedule a little bit, and it's going to be fun.
No doubt about it. So we're going to step away for a few minutes. When we come back, we're going to start with the Saints, finish off this topic. One move that each NFL team should make before the start of the season, and then we're going to jump right into college football. Who has the best quarterback rooms in the country? We'll let you know when we come back. Hour number 2. Keep it real, keep it locked. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hour number 2 of Keep It Real with Testa and Neal. How are all of you? We had a lot to, we talked about the NBA Finals getting started tonight. We talked about one move that every NFL team can make to get better. We still got to finish that. We got 9 teams left to do, and we got college football to talk about. So I hope all of you are doing well. If you're just not joining us, hope you had a great 4th of July. But it's good to be back. Parker rocking the Noblesville baseball cap, sporting the hometown squad. It's a nice looking hat.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a great hat. Noblesville's got a good baseball team, so always got to rep the brand.
Absolutely. So let's get right back into it. Let's finish talking about this NFL segment with the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston, named Jameis Winston the starting quarterback. Taysom Hill is not an NFL caliber quarterback. His inability to lead the Saints became blatantly obvious last year. The unit became severely limited with the 30-year-old under center. Hill brings value as a multi-purpose threat in multiple packages, whereas Jameis Winston's a traditional option. Winston is not perfect by any means. Winston became the first ever NFL quarterback to throw for 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions in a season. Still, the former Offensive Rookie of the Year has the tools to open up the entire playbook. A quarterback competition is nothing but a farce. Winston is clearly the right guy to lead the team this season. Let him get all of the first-team reps from the start of camp.
We both thought that this would be the option that they would go. Jameis has played in the NFL before. He started in the NFL before. He's won the passing title, if you can believe that. He's the more NFL ready quarterback. Taysom Hill, it came in as a quarterback, but he plays lots of different positions. So if it's not Taysom Hill as the starter, which I don't think it will be, they're going to still use him in that same kind of Swiss Army knife role.
Yeah, I agree. I think that just makes the most sense for this year at least. New York Giants signed linebacker KJ Wright. KJ Wright is the perfect Swiss Army knife for any team's defense, yet the soon-to-be 32-year-old linebacker remains unsigned. The Giants could use help at outside linebacker. Lorenzo Carter, who's coming back from a ruptured Achilles tendon, and second-round rookie Azeez Ojulari are the team's top options working off the edge. Wright isn't a traditional edge rusher, but his versatility can drastically help. The 10-year veteran can play Sam or Will at backer. He can line up across opposing tight ends and rush off the edge. He's also comfortable dropping into space. In fact, Pro Football Focus graded him as the league's 14th best linebacker last year. He wouldn't just help the team's outside linebackers, he can also play off the ball as a sub package. The Giants loaded up almost everywhere else this offseason, but linebacker deserves a little more attention. I think that's a perfect fit. KJ Wright is still, even though he's 32, he's still really, really good.
Yeah, he is. And the Giants need help on defense. Well, they need help everywhere, but especially on defense. They had Olivier Vernon there for a while, but he's no longer there. So KJ Wright would be a perfect guy to he can play really anywhere. And he's a pretty quick guy still, even though at 32 years old. So this move makes a lot of sense for the Giants.
It does. It really does. So let's move on to the next team, which is the New York Jets. Sign cornerback Steven Nelson. Salary cap space prohibits what teams can do at this point in the offseason. Nelson's a quality cover corner who remains available after the Steelers released him. His asking price remains the hang-up. He reportedly wants a one-year deal in excess of $3 million. While the number isn't exorbitant relative to other cornerback contracts, it's more than a few teams can handle. The Jets aren't counted among those teams. New York currently holds the league's second most cap space. Nelson can walk into the Jets building tomorrow and be the best corner on the roster while shifting the team's young backs, Bryce Hall and Bless Austin, into less pressured roles. A potential Nelson deal would be money well spent for the Jets.
Yeah, it would. They don't have Jamal Adams anymore, so they need they need kind of that corner safety hybrid role, and Nelson can play both a little bit. So the Jets are still going to be really interesting to watch. I'm really excited to see what Saleh does. And especially with Zach Wilson, how's he going to fare with the New York Jets? So the Jets are going to be I'm going to more than I would normally. I'm going to be watching a lot of Jets football this fall.
It feels so weird to say, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Philadelphia Eagles sign cornerback Brian Poole. The Eagles are one of the teams interested in Steven Nelson, but they can't afford him, according to a SiriusXM Adam Kaplan. Instead, the Eagles are forced to go bargain shopping to address an obvious area of concern. Brian Poole may not demand as much money on a short-term deal, but he shouldn't be viewed as a consolation prize. Poole has been one of the more consistent nickel corners in his entire career in the NFL. Philadelphia isn't settled at the position since Nickel Roby-Coleman, Jalen Mills, and Cravon LeBlanc are no longer with the team. Fourth-round rookie Zach McPherson will undoubtedly come in and compete against inside receivers, but the Eagles would be smart to add another presence to the group and improve the overall depth and quality.
Yeah, and this would be big help for the Eagles. They don't have they've lost a couple guys, so the secondary. If you don't have a good secondary, you're not going to be good. On the defensive side of the ball, because a good secondary is wildly important, especially in today's league where it's a passing league. So this would make a lot of move would make a lot of sense for the Eagles.
Yes, it would. Pittsburgh Steelers. Their offensive line is a weakness, so their move is to sign offensive tackle Dennis Kelly. The Steelers shouldn't be comfortable with what they have at offensive line. They decided to release David DeCastro, but immediately signed Trey Turner to replace him at right guard. The interior has a little more depth, even though center is up in the air. Tackle is concerning. Good Lord, I'm about to butcher this name. Chukwuma Okorafor will move from right to left tackle, even though he lost to Zach Banner in last year's training camp competition. Banner started one game before suffering a torn ACL. The Steelers don't really have a quality swing tackle on the roster. Joe Haig has experience at right tackle, but he can also play guard. Dennis Kelly started 20 games between right and left tackle over the past 2 seasons. Plus, the former Titan helped pave the way for the league's leading rusher, Derrick Henry, in both of those years. Kelly can give the Steelers quality depth or even a new starter.
Yeah, and this one's really important for the Steelers. Like you said, they lost DeCastro, and they've had some outside offensive line issues. Recently. So, they brought Trey Turner in to replace DeCastro, but that tackle, especially the left side, is really important because that's the quarterback's blind side. So, they've done well, adding a few players in free agency to kind of help with that depth, but they need a set in stone starter there.
Before we get into this next one, you'll find this funny, Parker. Our music director, Bella, just texted me and said, "Do you guys ever sleep?" Because once again, we're recording super late. And I responded the only way that I felt like was logical. And I said, "No, not really."
Yes. Yeah, you would be correct. You would be correct. So, Bella, if you're listening, no, we don't sleep.
Not really. Not much at all. I probably average 6 hours a night on a good night.
Yeah, and I'm pretty close to that number also.
Yeah. So let's move on. San Francisco 49ers, release or trade quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. Why postpone the inevitable? The Niners can't allow a lame duck quarterback to take reps away from the franchise's future. Trey Lance isn't just the future of Niners football, he's the present. Tight end George Kittle said, "Trey's a good quarterback. He's a hell of an athlete. Just being in OTAs with him, he's a guy that wants to learn every single day. He's competitive every single day. He doesn't let mistakes stop him." San Francisco would save $25 million by cutting or trading Garoppolo before the start of the regular season. More importantly, the veteran's departure will allow Lance to grow naturally with the first-team offense and get all the necessary reps to be ready for his first regular season. I'm torn on this one, Parker. I see the pros of letting Lance kind of learn on the field and getting adjusted. He has the weapons to be able to learn on the field, and Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, and it's a really talented roster. But there's still value in having Garoppolo start for 6 games and letting Trey Lance just make sure he's ready. We've seen both sides of it. We've seen guys like, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert that come in and look great and don't miss a beat starting in week 1. But we also see guys like Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers that benefit from sitting behind an experienced veteran. Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith. Mahomes is way better than Alex Smith ever was. But it's good to sit behind a guy that's been there before. So I see both sides of it. I get that the Niners are excited about Trey Lance's future, but personally, I know it's a $25 million cap hit, but I'd hang on to Jimmy G for one more year.
Yeah, I would too. Like you said, we've seen it before to where guys need that, that learning curve, and gain that experience from that, the starters. So I think it would be better for San Francisco to keep Garoppolo around and allow Lance to kind of develop, behind Garoppolo. So I can see why they want to just throw Lance in there and see what he's about because they spent a really high pick on him. But on the flip side of that, you want to get him hurt and possibly, cause more issues. So, personally, you keep Garoppolo and let Lance sit behind him.
I agree. Seattle Seahawks extend safety Jamal Adams. The Seahawks knew exactly where they stand with three-time Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams. Pete Carroll said last month it's been ongoing and it's been amicable throughout. We recognize that he's a fantastic football player. I know he's been treated with a lot of respect and he's been very respectful towards the club as well. There have been good talks and just hasn't been able to get settled at this point, but it's coming. Adams didn't show for mandatory minicamp, but the team excused him for personal reasons. The safety didn't plan to attend anyhow. By paying Adams now, the Seahawks can avoid a rising safety market with Fitzpatrick in Pittsburgh and Jesse Bates in Cincinnati also lined up for new deals. Jamal Adams wasn't as good last season as I think the Seahawks wanted him to be, but he was still very good. And when you give up, that the draft capital that the Seahawks gave up, it's a long-term investment. They got to get this deal done, and they got to keep Jamal Adams in Seattle.
Yeah, this is another one of those those position groups that we talked about earlier with quarterbacks setting the market, wide receivers setting the market now. Safety's coming up also, like this says, with not only Adams but Bates and Fitzpatrick as well. So if, like you said, if the Seahawks can get this done early, it's going to save them lots of money.
It is. Three more teams to go. The defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers extend center Ryan Jensen's deal. Tampa Bay manager Jason Licht pulled off what looked to be impossible 5 months ago. They re-signed Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Gronkowski, Ndamukong Suh, Leonard Fournette, and Antonio Brown. They placed the franchise tag on Chris Godwin as well. They returned all 22 starters from last year's Super Bowl team. As the organization moves forward, difficult decisions will be made. Godwin's a free agent after the year, and so is Ryan Jensen. For practical purposes, Jensen should get a new deal this offseason. He's arguably the best center in the league right now, but he'll turn 31 before next season. As such, he's not going to demand nearly as much in comparison to Godwin. 19 wide receivers make more money annually than the league's highest paid center, and Jensen isn't going to make $13 million or more on his next deal. The best long-term option for the Buccaneers is to reward Jensen and let Godwin walk.
Yeah, it is, and I think offensive line is more important to teams than wide receiver because if your quarterback's not standing up, how's he going to get the ball to the receivers?
Right.
So you need that a pretty good offensive line to just keep your quarterback off the grass. So and Jensen's part of that one. He is. So they need to get this piece of their offensive line lock him up so that he can't. Give him a big deal, and that's what they need here. So, I'm with you personally. Offensive line, you got to let Jensen stay and let Godwin walk.
Absolutely. Let's get to the Tennessee Titans. Sign Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman knows exactly where he'll sign to play this season in a manner of speaking. He said he wants to get on a team that's competing for a championship, so that's what he's focused on, and he's waiting for the right opportunity. Legitimate contenders with enough financial flexibility aren't exactly plentiful. The Titans have some remaining cap space and a need at cornerback. They already made a major move by trading for Julio Jones. Now they can look on the other side of the ball. They signed Janoris Jenkins and drafted Caleb Farley to go with Christian Fulton, but considering Farley's injury history, another quality addition to the cornerback room would be a smart investment for Tennessee.
It would, and this Titans team is a team that I like a lot. I'm not supposed to like them since they're in the Colts division, but I like them. I do. I'm not the biggest Tannehill fan, but with the pieces they have around Tannehill with Julio, as well as Derrick Henry, who's the best running back in football. I'm excited to see what this offense does. But if they get Sherman, this defense is going to be a whole lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. And let's get to the final team we're going to talk about today, the Washington football team. Defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. Extend him, excuse me. I just kind of named a player and didn't say what the move actually was. But Jonathan Allen. The Washington football team is rare because its identity centers on a ferocious defensive line. Jonathan Allen became the first of 4 consecutive first-round defensive lineman selections. He leads the way. He will play under his 5th-year option this fall, but they should try to avoid going into the season with Allen on the last year of his deal. The veteran brings a complete skill set. Chase Young may be the crown jewel of the Washington defensive front, but Allen makes the reigning Defensive Rookie of the Year's life a lot easier. The organization should get him a contract done and make sure that he's happy. Allen told reporters that he wants to be here. This is where he's from. This is his hometown. He's always had the goal of playing with one team his whole career, and he thinks he has a great opportunity to do it in Washington. I completely agree with everything that was just mentioned there. Chase Young's the sexy face of the Washington defense, but he doesn't get the opportunities he gets without Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. And Jonathan Allen likes being in Washington, and he's really damn good. So extend him and start building that defensive line for the future. With as long as they have guys like, they have obviously Kerrigan's not there anymore, but they still have Daron Payne, they still have Jonathan Allen, and they have Chase Young. That's scary for any quarterback that faces Washington this season.
Yeah, it is. And like we talked about earlier with pass rushing, you need to have 2 guys because if you just have one main guy that everybody knows is really good, the offensive line is going to throw everything they have at that one guy. So you need to have kind of two pretty good pass rushers to kind of disrupt one side to where the other one can get through, and then vice versa. So, like you said, Chase Young's the face that everybody sees on that defense, but like you said, doesn't get the stats without Jonathan Allen.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. So now we move on and we get to we go from one league of football to another. We go from the NFL back to college, and we're talking college football here to end the show. So I thought it would be fun. It's our free talk kind of Monday vibe. And so since we're waiting until Wednesday to do our first conference preview, I thought it would be fun to do top individual units, and we start with the quarterback room, Parker. So let me zoom in here so everyone can see. But we're starting with quarterbacks today, and I'm very, very excited for this. So this is going to be interesting, Parker, because not everything rides on the quality of the starter. Because if you look here at this list before we start breaking it down, Cincinnati's at 13, but I think Desmond Ridder is a top 5 quarterback in college football, but they don't have the talent in the quarterback room that some of these other teams do in terms of 5-star recruit backups and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they break this down. What do you think?
Yeah, it will be. It's not just about one guy, because if it was, Cincinnati would be probably at the top of this list because Ridder's really good, but this is taking the whole room into account. So this is really important, because a lot of those lower level roster quarterback guys don't get a lot of attention, but this is taking all those guys into account here.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see. I'm an Ohio State fan, but it's interesting to see. Just look at the rest of the top 64 here. Ohio State's sitting at number 31. I think that's a fair rating for them because their quarterback this year is going to be C.J. Stroud, who's never played a snap at Ohio State. So they just have a huge question mark at quarterback right now. Obviously, C.J. Stroud's a 4-star quarterback prospect. He's supposed to be really, really good, but as of now, it's a question mark. But it's interesting because it seems like Ohio State's top 10 in everything that they do. So it's kind of funny to see teams like, Kent State and Indiana and Coastal Carolina ahead of them in quarterback rating.
Yeah. And, there are a bunch of teams that, we may see higher on this list because we don't know what those, guys underneath the starter are capable of. You don't hear a lot about those guys. So this ranking or this list is going to be a lot different from, what you're used to seeing. I already can see Liberty in the top 10, as well as Nevada and Boston College. So this is going to be a fun one.
Let's start at the top, Parker, with the Oklahoma Sooners. Spencer Rattler is this is from Phil Steele, obviously, the Phil Steele College Football Preview, if you want to follow along with us. But Spencer Rattler is Phil Steele's choice to win the Heisman and was the first inexperienced quarterback under Lincoln Riley at OU. His first three quarterbacks were all starting for NFL teams last year. Two of them won the Heisman, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. Rattler is now his fourth experienced quarterback. He had 68% completion percentage last year with a 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions ratio. They also have Caleb Williams and Penn State transfer Micah Bowens on the depth chart. So there's solid depth there. Oklahoma deserving to be number one. They have two really solid backups that have experience and talent and potential. And Spencer Rattler, like this says, I don't know if he's my Heisman pick, but he's definitely in the Heisman conversation. He's one of the best in America.
Yeah, he is. And, this Oklahoma team, and like you said, Lincoln Riley, has been known for developing NFL-ready quarterbacks. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield as well. And I think Spencer Rattler is just the next guy, the next guy up, the next guy that's going to be drafted. So, like Phil Steele said, he's his pick to win the Heisman. And this certainly gives a lot of, credit to Oklahoma, being at number one on this list.
Absolutely. Number two, Ole Miss. We go to the SEC. Matt Corral. He started 4 games in 2019, but he flourished in Lane Kiffin's offense last year, throwing for 3,400 yards almost, 71% completion percentage, 29 touchdowns, a little high with 14 interceptions, but he also ran for 500 yards. It's a very aggressive offensive scheme under Lane Kiffin, so there will probably be a lot of turnovers, but this guy has quite the arm talent. And he was also mobile, obviously, with 500 rushing yards. He figures to improve on those numbers. And then they also have John Reese Plumlee, who's a very solid backup. He had 8 starts in 2019. He's able to throw the ball at a pretty high level. And then they also have a very solid recruit in Luke Altmaier. So Matt Corral, one of the most intriguing quarterbacks in the country. He doesn't get quite the same hype that Rattler and Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder and Caden Slovis get. But I'm excited to watch Matt Corral this year at Ole Miss, especially in that Lane Kiffin running gun kind of scheme. And then having an experienced backup is so important in college football. And the fact that they have John Reese Plumlee, who has 8 starts in his career in college, if something happens to Matt Corral, it's such a, weight off of Lane Kiffin's shoulders to know that he has 2 guys in that room that have starting quarterback experience. And then he also has a very talented recruit in Luke Altmaier.
Right. And depth is so important, especially at the quarterback position, because if Matt Corral, like you said, gets hurt, or he just isn't playing well, you have Plumlee behind him, who threw that, or, he had 1,000 rushing yards and almost 1,000 throwing yards. So, and you have really talented backups. And like you said, Luke Altmaier is promising coming in. So, Ole Miss is in a good spot.
They sure are. Number 3, North Carolina. I loved watching the Tar Heels last year. Mac Brown's done a great job with this program, and it's because they have Sam Howell. Sam Howell might be the first pick in the 2022 NFL draft. It's going to be close between him, Rattler, even Desmond Ridder might be in that conversation, but Sam Howell's about as good as it gets. 3,600 yards on 68% completions, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He did lose 4 NFL draft choices from skill positions last year, but he's extremely talented. I have no concerns about Sam Howell. This guy's going to be a Heisman candidate. This guy's going to make North Carolina one of the best teams in the ACC. But they also have backup Jacoby Criswell, very athletic, very strong arm. And then true freshman Drake May, 6'5", played a little bit in the spring game. So again, this is our third straight team that we talk about that has one of the best starters in the country in Sam Howell, but a very athletic backup that can make plays should an injury arise in Jacoby Criswell. And then Drake May doesn't have any experience yet in an actual game action setting, but 6'5" and a good arm, that's a good place to start if you're a freshman.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, or some of these guys that are, backing up guys like, Rattler and Ridder and Howell, they're the next guys when these guys move on, to the NFL. So that they, it's like the thing we talked about earlier: sit behind an older player, learn from what they do, and then you step into that role eventually. And it's the same thing with college. So a lot of these backups are kind of taking in what they can, and if they get a chance to play, they go out there and they got to show what they got.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so Sam Howell, like I said, I am a huge Sam Howell fan. I personally, I get the hype surrounding Spencer Rattler. He's such a dual threat. He's such a good athlete. He is such a good playmaker. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he won the Heisman this year and if Oklahoma's in the college football playoff. But personally, Parker, I think Sam Howell's my favorite to win the Heisman. I think this guy's in for a big time year that might make him the number one overall pick.
Yeah, I certainly see where you're coming from. And he certainly has the potential to do have a really good year, and I think he will. Personally, I'm with Phil Steele on this. I think Rattler wins the Heisman. But it's going to be close between not only these two guys, but a few others as well that we might not expect yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of college football. The unexpected storylines come up every year. Let's get to number 4, Miami, Florida. This is an interesting one because they were going into the year expecting to have a quarterback competition between Jake Garcia and Tyler Van Dyke, and both played well. And they were kind of, having that back and forth who should start between those two. And then Derek King decided to come back, the transfer from Houston. He had 2,700 passing yards a year ago, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 500 rushing yards. He tore his ACL in the bowl game, but he's good to go. And with the COVID rules, he's able to use an extra year of eligibility, and he's going to come back. So not only do they have Jake Garcia and Tyler Van Dyke, who both looked like they were ready to start for Miami, now they have Derek King back. So they have 3 maybe starting caliber quarterbacks on this roster. Miami might have a really, really strong year just because of how talented their quarterbacks are.
Yeah, it's possible. And all these guys have, like you said, Derek King is, most likely going to be the starter, but, they have 2 quality backups in Garcia and Van Dyke. So, if Derek King has trouble with his knee, which, they say he won't, but he should be ready. But if he does, you still got Van Dyke and Garcia back there, as quality backups.
Yeah. Number 5, the USC Trojans. Obviously, they are led by Caden Slovis, one of the best quarterbacks in the country as well. Caden Slovis completed 72% of his passes last year, 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. Excuse me, that was in 2019. Last year, Slovis threw for 67%, 1,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in a shortened season. But he had a lot of game-winning drives. He was clutch for USC last year. And they also have a pair of true freshmen that are both really talented, 5-star Jackson Dart and 4-star Miller Moss. And then they also add in Oklahoma State transfer Brendan Costello, who provides depth. In case that name sounds familiar to some of you football fans at home, he is the younger brother of former Stanford quarterback KJ Costello.
Yeah, he is. So this one's really interesting. USC is a team that's we haven't seen a whole lot come out of there as far as quarterbacks go, but they got some pretty solid guys here. They do. Slovis, like you said, 72% with 3,500 yards last year. In 2019. Didn't have as good of a game last year or a good of a season last year, but you got to take into account a short season. So, the Trojans, they have some, these 2 promising guys here at the end. Dart and Moss, who are coming in as freshmen, and then Costello comes in from Oklahoma State. So they have lots of new faces here, at USC, and I think they're going to try to use all of them.
Yeah, they do. These next 3 teams might be some teams that you have not heard much about their quarterback room. Let's start with number 6, Nevada. Carson Strong, 6'4", 215 pounds. He threw for almost 2,900 yards, 70% completion percentage, 27 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions last year. He's entering his 3rd year as a starter, so he has the experience, and he's one of the top quarterbacks heading into the 22 NFL draft. Clay Millen is athletic with a strong arm as a backup. And how about this? Their 3rd-string quarterback, Parker, Nate Cox, 6'9", and in his 5th year on the team.
5 years is impressive enough to be, a quarterback on a college football team. But to be 6'9", that's the cherry on top. That's awesome. So, I can't honestly say much because I don't know a whole lot about Nevada football other than it's in Nevada. But that they should have a promising year. I've been seeing Nevada on, bowl games, so they're having some success, there, at the University of Nevada. So I'm excited to see what they do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the big thing that I think makes Nevada dangerous in the quarterback room is just that experience that they have. Carson Strong going into his third year as the starter. Nate Cox has 5 years on that program. He knows the system very well. Clay Millen a little younger, but he has the athletic ability and he's a very strong arm as well. So not only the present is strong for Nevada football, at least at quarterback, but the future also looks bright. So let's get to Boston College. Phil Jerkovic began his career at Notre Dame, but transferred to Boston College last season. He threw for almost 2,600 yards, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. What will he do now that he has a little bit of experience and a full spring offseason under his belt? Dennis Grossel also started 7 games in 2019 and threw for 520 yards in a start against Virginia last year. So Durkovic's going to be the guy. He had a strong year last year, but and expects to improve this year with more time and more experience. But again, another one of these teams, it's a theme in this top 10, a backup with experience. Dennis Grossel started 7 games 2 years ago and also started a game last year. So if Jerkovic's not performing at the level that he needs to, or he gets hurt, Boston College has options.
Right, and experienced quarterbacks is becoming a pattern, I think, among all these schools, because and that's why they're near the top of this list, because they develop guys really well, and there's it seems like there's a quarterback competition from a school we haven't heard about in a while, every year. So it's always there's always turnover here. So if Jerkovic struggles, they still have Grossel, to come in and he'll play well because he's proven that he's experienced.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to Liberty at number 8. The Liberty Flames added Auburn transfer Malik Willis last year, and he had a big impact right away. They went 10-1, finished the year at number 17. Willis is high on NFL draft boards and threw for 2,200 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and also ran for almost 1,000 yards. Backup redshirt freshman Jonathan Bennett knows the offense well and is able to and is preparing to step in when Willis goes to the NFL.
Yeah, so Liberty football is something I don't really know a whole lot about. To be honest, I don't even know where Liberty University is. But
it's in Tennessee. My sister's boyfriend had his older sister go to Liberty for like 2 years, and I think it's in Tennessee.
Okay. But yeah, you have had that transfer from Auburn, Willis. He played very well. 10-1, and they were ranked at the end of the year. So he's just another one of these guys that's going to be leaving for the NFL. And like you said, Jonathan Bennett steps in and he knows the offense and will kind of be kind of thrown into that role.
And once again, Parker never fails on this show. Once again, I was wrong. Liberty's in Virginia. I looked it up. It's in Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia. So UCF comes in at number 9, and they have, of course, Dylan Gabriel, who he had to come in for Mackenzie Milton, who was a very good quarterback, obviously. Had a big role to fill. But as a true freshman, he threw for 3,700 yards, 29 touchdowns. Last year, 3,600 yards, 32 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. He improved his accuracy heading into the year. And then they have true freshman Mikey Keene as the backup, a 4-star recruit, very dynamic, great playmaker, and a very quick release. So Dylan Gabriel comes back for another year. He just seems to get better and better every season. And then they turn the keys over to Mikey Keene after the year, who, like I said, just seems to be like a playmaker in the making.
Yeah. He does. So, Gabriel's played fantastically. Like you said, not easy to fill the shoes of Mackenzie Milton. And he did great things at UCF. But Gabriel's come in and he's played well, down there in the Orlando area. So, they have a good team. That they held like one of the longest stretches of being undefeated for a college football team ever, I think. So and that was when Mackenzie Milton was quarterback there. So Gabriel stepped in and he's played well, down there. So he'll be gone after this year. So we'll have to see what Keene can step in and do.
Absolutely. Let's get to number 10. Iowa State, and we'll get more into UCF on Wednesday. If you tune into the show on Wednesday, we're doing the American Conference as our first conference preview for the season, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot of UCF. We'll talk a lot of Memphis, and we'll talk about a lot about another team that's on this list coming up in the Cincinnati Bearcats. So if you want to hear more about Dylan Gabriel and the UCF Golden Knights, make sure you tune in on Wednesday. Iowa State comes in at number 10, though. Brock Purdy, now his 4th season as a starter. I am hyped for this Iowa State football team. They have a very experienced defense, one of the best in the country. Brock Purdy leads the team. This is going to be a good Iowa State team. I'm not sold on Oklahoma being runaway favorites in the Big 12 yet because of this Iowa State team. Brock Purdy, almost 9,000 career passing yards, 66% completion percentage, 62 touchdowns. He led Iowa State to the best record in the Big 12 last year. And then they also have Hunter Deckers as their backup. Very athletic. He was a 3-star quarterback, but he's the Iowa high school all-time career passer.
Yeah, so this Iowa State team is fun, man. They are. And Purdy's, nearing the end of his career there. He's a great passer, 66%, accuracy, for his career. So, at Iowa State in that conference, it's not easy to do. So that they have some security there with Purdy, but they need to start, developing their guys behind them for the future years.
No doubt about it. Let's move on to number 11, and that is the. Oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. It zoomed out. Let me fix that really quick. But number 11. Oh, that's too far in. My bad. We're adjusting here. Ignore. Number 11, the Georgia Bulldogs. JT Daniels, the former USC recruit, threw for 2,700 yards, 14 touchdowns in his first season at USC, the true freshman. But again, USC decided to go in the direction of Caden Slovis, so he transferred to Georgia, played 4 games last year, averaged 38 points a game, 4-0 record, and had a 10 touchdown, 2 interception ratio. Carson Beck as well, very strong arm, 5-star recruit. And then Stetson Bennett also started 5 games a year ago. So this is a good balance for me for the Georgia Bulldogs. It's obviously not as good as some of the other quarterback rooms we've talked about today, but JT Daniels has a good balance of experience and still potential. Carson Beck has a ton of potential, and Stetson Bennett, not as talented as the other 2 guys, but he has some starting experience, and he's a guy that knows the offense.
Yeah, he does. And Daniels is going to be a guy that's going to be there for this year and the next 2 years. So Georgia has potential behind them to be really good, but we'll see what they decide to do here. Will they try to develop one of these younger guys and maybe take Daniel's spot if he struggles? But we'll just have to wait and see what Kirby Smart and company decide to do.
Absolutely. Let's get to number 12. Oh my God, I did it again. Okay, this time I figured out how to fix it. But number 12 is the Boise State Broncos. Hank Bachmeier. It's funny. It's a funny story. I accidentally turned on a Boise State game, and it happened to be the first game Hank Bachmeier started as a true freshman, and he played really well. And I was interested, and I kept up with him over the last couple of years, and he's really, really good, obviously, now. Entering his 3rd year as the starting quarterback at Boise. They beat Florida State in that first game. He's a tough kid, and he now has 2 years of starting experience, like I said. He's one of the better quarterbacks that not as many people know about in the country. Jack Sears, their backup quarterback, a transfer from USC, has completed 78% of his passes in college, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions yet in 3 career starts. Small sample size, but he's shown some ability as well. So Bachmeier's the guy. This is a tough kid. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. His ceiling isn't as high as some of these other guys, but his floor is very high. He's not going to lose. You're not going to lose any games because of his play. He's a guy that plays very, very well every single week. He's very consistent. And then you also have Jack Sears, who, if for some reason you need to use Jack Sears, he looks like he has a lot of talent.
He does. And Boise State, I love Boise State. The Broncos, that blue field is just awesome. But and they've had competitive teams, but Bachmeyer has been the guy, and he's been at the forefront of those competitive teams. So when the time comes that Bachmeyer is done, Sears has plenty of talent and experience to step in there and take over.
Absolutely. Let's get to number 13, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Desmond Ridder. This guy has maybe the best resume in college football right now for a quarterback. 30-5 as a starter. Last year, he started to be more comfortable with his wide receivers. 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the last 7 games. He makes some mistakes sometimes. He tries to force plays, but he's a tough runner. He's a top NFL prospect. This guy is very, very, very good. Desmond Ritter's fun to watch. UC's got themselves a very, very good quarterback. And then Evan Prater, their backup, a great athlete, just like Desmond Ridder, 4-star recruit, very solid arm. I think he expected to be the starting quarterback this year, and he kind of expected Ridder to go pro. Ridder decided to come back for one more year. Ritter's going to be a first-round draft pick, and Prater's going to step in, and I think he's going to play very similarly to Ridder.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially after sitting behind him for a while. You pick up on things that guy does. So he'll try to implement some of those things into his game, and I'm excited to see what Prater does. Obviously, Ritter's going to be in the top 5 rankings for quarterbacks going into the next year's draft. So can Prater kind of make that jump into a starter role at Cincinnati?
Absolutely. The Kent State Golden Flashes come in at number 14. Dustin Crum outplayed Jordan Love in the 2019 Frisco Bowl. That kind of got him on the map. Crum has thrown for 4,200 yards with a 68, almost 69% completion percentage, 35 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 16 career starts. Kent State averaged almost 50 points a game and 600 yards per game on offense last year. I know it's the MAC. I know it's not as competitive as leagues like the SEC and the Big Ten and even the American, like we just talked about with Cincinnati. But 50 points a game and 600 yards per game while you're completing 69% of your passes with 35 touchdowns in 16 games, there's talent there. I don't care what league you play in. Dustin Crum is an absolute stud. And when we get to the MAC conference preview here in a couple weeks, Parker, I'm excited to talk about the Kent State Golden Flashes because they have quite the offensive attack.
They do, and they're fun to watch. Dustin Crum has been the guy there, at Kent State for the last 2 years. So, like this, beat Jordan Love in the Frisco Bowl 2 years ago. So, there's certainly talent here at Kent State. And like you said, MAC football is really competitive. Ball State won the MAC last year. So we'll see, that we got some competitive MAC football going on this fall.
Absolutely. I mean, not a lot of casual football fans keep up with the MAC, and that's fine. I don't even keep up with the MAC a ton myself. But some of those rivalries in the MAC, man, Toledo, Kent State, the OU Bobcats, Miami Redhawks, like you mentioned, Ball State, Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan. The MAC's a fun. I mean, sometimes when you're waiting for a Big Ten game to start or a Pac-12 game to start, and you stumble across a MAC game at 8 p.m. on a Friday night right before the Saturday slate of games. MAC football is fun to watch. There's a lot of really competitive teams, and they play some really good football.
Yeah, they do, and they bring really talented teams, like you said. And one thing I think that's funny about those leagues is once a team gets good, they're not good for very long because their coach has already gone to a bigger conference. So coaching turnover is big in these mid majors conferences. So, but Kent State's done a fantastic job.
Absolutely. And the final team we're going to talk about today, Clemson at 15. Obviously, they will be replacing Trevor Lawrence, and they're going to be replacing him with a 5-star quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei. He's 6'4", 250 pounds. Tremendous athlete. He got to play a couple games last year when Lawrence was hurt. He was thrown into the fire, like I said, true freshman against Notre Dame, but 439 yards passing, the most Notre Dame's defense gave up all year. He's going to have some growing pains. He's going to make some mistakes. He does not have a lot of experience, but he's a 5-star athlete for a reason, and he has the arm strength, he has the talent, he has the athleticism, and he has the intelligence. I expect him to be very, very good this year for the Tigers.
Yeah, especially after sitting behind Trevor Lawrence, I would hope you would have gained something from that. But yeah, DJ Uiagalelei has been, he's since he came in last year. I'm sure Dabo Swinney has been telling him, "Hey, you're the guy next year. You're the guy next year. Figure this out." So I'm excited to see what the Tigers do. I'm not sure what their depth is behind Uiagalelei, but I'm sure they've brought in some really really good recruits to fill that spot when his time comes.
Absolutely. And so that was the top 15 quarterback rooms in the country heading into the 2021 season. We still got to do running backs. We still got to do wide receivers. We still got to do linebackers, defensive lines. So, I mean, we're going to have some fun throughout the rest of the summer. I mean, it's good. I've said it probably a half dozen times already, but good to have college football back.
Yeah, it is. Just going over all these different teams and all the different, storylines you got to follow, new coaches in new places, transfers moving on. How are these, position, these teams going to fill these guys who've left for the draft? So many storylines to cover and so many topics we can get into.
And I know we mentioned, or I mentioned briefly that Ohio State will be starting a quarterback, CJ Stroud, that's never played. So there's a question mark there, but I do promise you, I don't know when we're going to do it, but when we get to wide receivers, I would be shocked if Ohio State's not in the top 3, maybe even number 1, with guys like Chris Olave coming back and Garrett Wilson and Julian Fleming. Julian Fleming was the number 1 receiver in the country, his class, and Garrett Wilson was also the number 1 receiver in the country in his class. And Chris Olave might be the best senior wide receiver in college football. So when we get to wide receivers, that's what Ohio State does well. So I'm excited to see where they land on that list.
Yeah, me too. There are certain schools that keep pumping out really good people at certain positions. Ohio State, with wide receivers, LSU with defensive backs. So they there are teams that have earned that that common theme because they just send out really good players from those positions.
And I would say Bama on the front 7, and that's probably where they get most of their guys. But let's be real, Bama basically pumps out NFL talent at every position.
Yeah, and they seems like they have 15 or 20 guys drafted at least every year. Maybe
right.
more.
If he wanted to, their coach would get drafted to the NFL.
He would. Could you imagine that? That every year some team gets a coach's pick from college.
The NFL coaches draft, the 5 worst teams in the league get to pick any coach from college football.
Yes, I love it.
There you go. I wouldn't like it because I know one of those teams would take Ryan Day, and I don't want Ryan Day to leave Ohio State, but that's always something that Ohio State fans have been worried about. It's like every time an NFL team fires their head coach, it's like, don't you dare call Ryan Day. He's staying here. Go talk to Dabo.
Dabo is not leaving Clemson.
The only place Dabo would ever leave Clemson for is Alabama.
You think so?
I don't know if he does it, but it's the only place he'd ever leave Clemson for. He graduated from Bama. And if Bama gives him a pitch to replace Saban and be, the next head coach of Alabama football, if it's a good enough pitch, I could see him strongly considering it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, is it possible? Yes. Will Saban ever leave Alabama? No. So
probably not.
What are we talking about here?
Saban's immortal. Let's be real. But no, I mean, I think that Saban's built enough of a dynasty and a legacy at Clemson that I don't think he leaves. But in the back of your head, you do have to keep in mind that he did graduate from the University of Alabama. And it's always something special for coaches to coach at their alma mater. And it probably is even more special when it's replacing Nick Saban, maybe the greatest coach in college football history, at one of the greatest college football programs in the history of the sport.
Yeah, they're the New England Patriots of college football, and they've dominated college football and the SEC for a long time. So, would I be surprised to see them, pump out 25, 30 more guys next year in the draft? No, because it's going to happen. It's inevitable. So, yeah, but this show's crazy, dude. We bounce from topic to topic, and we were talking about coaches' picks in the draft, and now talking about Saban and Dabo Sweeney to the NFL.
Yep.
Back and forth today, Shay.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride all summer. Really, it's been a wild ride. I mean, we've talked about the best sodas. We've talked about the greatest fast food places. I mean, for the fact that we advertise this show as a sports show, we really don't talk sports a whole lot, do we?
Well,
I'd say we still
talked so many sports, among a few different topics. So it's okay to kind of mix it up every once in a while.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So tomorrow, we're going to have another big time show for you tomorrow. We're going to talk NBA Finals Game 1. We're going to break down everything that happened. Will Giannis be back for Game 2? All that kind of stuff. Who takes Game 1 of the NBA Finals? Let us know on social media at WWSU1069, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at Parker Testa, at ESPN Shea Neal. Follow us there. Let us know who you think is going to win Finals Game 1 tomorrow. Who's going to win the Finals, period, but who's going to win Game 1? Do the Suns hold down home court and beat the Bucks? Or does Milwaukee come into Phoenix and make a statement to start off the NBA Finals? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the MLB All-Star Game. We talked about the starters last week, but they announced all the pitchers. They announced all the reserves. We'll get into that. And then also, I'm sure we'll find plenty of other stuff to talk about as well. Shohei Ohtani became the first player ever, Parker. He's going to pitch and hit DH in the All-Star Game.
It's unbelievable what he's done. It really is. And I'm excited to see how the American League uses him, in the All-Star game.
No doubt about it. And so a lot to get in tomorrow. Wednesday, again, if you're just not tuning in, Wednesdays for the rest of summer is going to be our non-Power 5 conference previews. So we don't know if it'll be hour number 1. We don't know if it'll be hour number 2 yet, but a good chunk of one of the hours of the show on Wednesday will be dedicated towards the American Conference. We're going to be talking UC Bearcats. We just talked about Desmond Ridder, Evan Prater. That UC team's really, really good. They almost beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl last year, Parker. And a lot of people, including my sister who goes to UC, would say that they should have beaten Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. So I have high expectations for this UC football team. I don't think they get to the college football playoff until they expand the playoff. But this is a UC football team that has the talent to be a top 10 team in the country. UCF, Memphis, Houston, USF, we talked about UCF with Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel, as long as he's on that field, UCF has a chance to beat anyone. So it may not be a Power 5 conference, but the American's going to be really fun to dive into and break down. I'm really excited for Wednesday.
Yeah, I am too. Lots to get into, especially with this American football conference. So I'm excited to kind of dive into it and break it down.
And then Fridays will be our Power 5 conference previews. We like to have fun on Fridays, so we decided to save the big boy conferences for Fridays. And we're starting this week out on the West Coast with the Pac-12. Caden Slovis, USC, Washington. Oregon's got a really good football team with, of course, Kayvon Thibodeau, one of the best defensive linemen in the country, a former number 1 overall recruit. He's like 6'5" and like 280 pounds, but he runs like a 4.35 40. Like, what the actual hell? What? Are you kidding me? How are you 6'5" and 280 and you run that fast? That's not supposed to happen.
No, it's not fair.
Yeah, it's really not. It's really not. But we'll get into the Pac-12 on Friday. I'm excited to break that down as well. The Utah Utes, I forgot to mention earlier when we talked about the Pac-12, but I'm very excited. I think it comes down to Utah, USC, and Washington for the 3 teams at the top of the Pac-12. We'll get into it on Friday, but it's going to be a dogfight, man. Utah is a very experienced team with a lot of very fundamentally sound football. But USC's got Caden Slovis, and that kid's talented enough where as long as, like I said with Dylan Gabriel, if Caden Slovis is on the field, USC can beat anyone.
Yeah, they can. And there are players that are like that have that it factor, and Slovis is one of them, so I'm excited for it.
So that's just kind of a little sneak peek at the week ahead. It's good to be back. We appreciate you hanging out with us. And we'll be back at it tomorrow from 1 to 3. Parker, any closing thoughts before we put a bow on Tuesday?
Come see us at the in the student union on Thursday. Come see us. We'd love to see you.
I'm glad you brought that up. Atrium from, I assume it's the same time frame, but we'll probably be hanging out there around 10:30 all the way up until about 1:32. So come see us anytime during that stretch. We'll have t-shirts to give away. If we run out of t-shirts in your size, because we are starting to run a little low on our t-shirt supply, we are ordering new ones, and we will have them ready for fall. So come find us in the fall. We'll hook you up with one of the new ones if you don't get your chance to get one of the old ones. We also have hot cards. We also have, ways to get involved. Join our sports team. Join our music team. Join our marketing team. So I said it a couple weeks ago. I'll say it again. We're the fastest growing Oregon campus right now. A lot of good things happening at WWSU, and come be a part of it. We'd love to have you on board.
Absolutely. Like you said, whether that's if you're into computers, you want to work with our engineering department. You're a big fan of music, you want to work in our music department. Whatever it is that you want to do, we'll find the spot for you. So come see us, come get involved, and we're just excited. We're having more fun than anybody. We say it all the time. So come have fun with us.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And I know we've in the past I've talked about quite a bit about our marketing department and our music department and our sports department, how good it is. But I'm glad you brought up if you're interested in computers or you're interested in the behind the scenes stuff, because if you are interested in that stuff, I promise you will never learn more or work with somebody that's as talented as our engineer, Patrick Smallstick. If you have any interest in software design or software development or, just anything along those lines of, maintaining the program, the software behind the scenes, he's the most talented individual I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, he is. He's just, we say it all the time, the Michael Jordan of college radio, Patrick Smallstick. He's just really, really damn good at what he does. And, I could never, we would not be in a good place if it weren't for Pat right now.
Absolutely not. Well, that does it. We're going to step away because we are now at 3:04, and I don't want to, step on anyone's toes anymore. But we appreciate you hanging out with us. Until tomorrow, for Parker Testa back in Noblesville, this is Shea Neal saying so long. Keep it real. We'll see you tomorrow.